Maria Belka, entrepreneur, investor, and a woman who is shaping the way that we're thinking about innovation and startups in Poland today.
Thank you very much for inviting me and for your kind introduction.
A few years ago, the whole topic of startups was hyped up in Poland. This was going to be the way that Poland developed. We were going to be a powerhouse, a new innovation hub. Maybe a decade on, how would you assess, has that promise been delivered on? Has Poland really made progress?
Well, certainly the initial hype cycle has cooled down and well, thousands of unicorns weren't created, but...
Explain unicorn.
Unicorn is a company that has a valuation of over $1 billion. In Poland, we have a few cases of companies that reached that level. They scaled up globally, but going back to what is happening in Poland, well, the thousands of unicorns did not appear, but what appeared is the infrastructure. There's a lot of accelerators, incubators, universities got interested in the ecosystem, investors, all sorts of business angels, VC funds, etc. Because in order to create a healthy ecosystem for startups, we need leaders, which are the founders. We need feeders, which are the investors who fuel the functioning of startups with their investments, and cheerleaders, which means all the other institutions that help, that cheer for our founders, that sometimes give visibility, sometimes help us test certain new functionalities, new ideas. Hence, I wouldn't say that, depending who promised what, of course we have an appetite for more, but I believe that now what we're experiencing is that there's a second generation of founders, people who already have tried to build something, sometimes even with success, maybe not $1 billion success, but with successful exits or development or scaling within the region or globally. But now those people they matured and they know what they're doing. So I think this may be even more promising than that hype 10 years ago.
So you talk about putting the ecosystem in place, but when you think about private companies, because we're talking about private companies focused on innovation, and you think about the biggest names in Poland, Allegro, online shopping, you think about InPost, the courier delivery services. These are companies that actually managed to start up and thrive without the ecosystem. And now we have the ecosystem, as you say, you're happy to see it, and then we don't have the big success stories. And okay, we could look at the United States where, every week there's a new unicorn. But let's look to a little closer to home, Estonia, 1.2 million people. And they have Skype, they have Wise, they have Bolt. So what are they doing that we're not doing?
This is true. We don't have this single line or like one vertical that we're really good at. I think what we are into more is like building a highway. I think the edge of the Polish startup ecosystem lies in our diversity. We're really good in AI, in deep tech, in medtech, in green technologies. And this is where we're really investing our talent, where people are coming up with solutions. So this is true that we don't have one specialty as you mentioned, or we're not the first digital country in Europe. Yet I believe that what we are creating is an ecosystem that really helps diverse branches to develop, and I think there is an option that next unicorn will not be built in a Silicon Valley garage, but maybe in a lab somewhere in Poland.
So you see that actually in this diversity, I mean, we talked about Estonia, and of course they are such a digital society, digital economy. Then we look at Lithuania, which has really excelled in financial online banking. You don't see that as a weakness, that Poland has not picked a particular niche for itself. You think that actually in this diversity is our strength?
I believe so. I think we are, much densely populated and much bigger populations than the aforementioned countries that you've said. But I believe this is the diversity. That's our superpower, and this is our chance, in my opinion. I wouldn't really cut out the other talents that, if we focus, like, who would decide on what is our superpower? Like, oh, green technologies starting tomorrow. No one has that power. It's more about, people being, into certain domains. And I believe this is about, being business agnostic and letting in more and more, feeders and cheerleaders into the system.
Okay, so let's say we have the startup, we have the fledgling businesses. Do they stay here? When it comes to scaling up, when it actually comes to making a global impact, are these companies staying in Poland, or are they moving to London, to Berlin? Is that infrastructure already in place for them?
Of course, we've heard of all those startups where we have Polish founders, but they emigrated mostly to the US, and the startups are Polish, so-called Polish at that moment, only because of the founders, right? With 11 Labs, for example. And I believe this is an issue to be resolved. I think we still need more carrot for the technological entrepreneurs to be shown to them here, rather than some, making their life more difficult in expanding. Obviously, Poland falls into this trap of a medium-sized market. We are big enough to try something new and to build something that is interesting, but we are not as a big market as the United States or Western Europe, that you can create a proper unicorn or prepare something that people talk about in the world. So, of course, I hope for the future that our lawmakers will consider some carrots again, going back to that nomenclature, saying that. We need to make their life easier to prevent to stop them going to the States. However, it is part of the expansion. So why stop them? Why not help them out with going to other countries? I think it still needs to our VC system, in general investment system is not mature yet. We are still learning how to invest in companies. So in which companies to invest? What is the role of the state in Poland? Like at the moment, the state is really heavily invested in the VC business, which has good sides and bad sides.
I mean, one thing we have here, which they don't have in the United States, we have substantial EU funding. We have public money. Often in the United States, this comes from private foundations, it comes from wealthy universities, maybe if we're talking about technology transfer from universities. Is that actually a help or a hindrance? Is there more discipline and rigor when you have to seek those funds on a market than applying for grants?
Absolutely, this is what you say. I mean, it depends. It's what always psychotherapists say. It depends. Like it's very good in order for the startups to emerge and to educate them. I believe this is a very good solution, a very efficient solution, giving them funding, even though it may at some point hinder their development. Nevertheless, at some point, and I believe we are as a Polish ecosystem at that point, we have to really draw conclusions and see, okay, what works, what doesn't work, and what are really the startups that can develop further without the institutional stuff.
To wean these businesses off this funding, you think?
Yes, exactly. We have to, really, like I believe, it's not like in the US, it's the, law of the jungle, right? You survive if you have a good product market fit, you grow, you survive. Here, okay, we assist you to a certain point. But both startups have to learn at the moment, okay, so what's next? And lawmakers and the governments have to be, okay, till what point, to what extent do we want to support those businesses, and when is the time, like having a child, right?
Yes.
So it's like at some point you have to,
step back,
take a step baback and be like, okay, now it's...
You mentioned children. For somebody like me, Gen Z is already children. And you have a very interesting project, Mentors for Starters. Here you're focused on sharing the experience of entrepreneurs with already hands-on practical experience with the Gen Zs, with those people who are really keen, they're bright, they have ideas, they're enthusiastic. When you look at that generation, which is often much maligned, I would say, are you optimistic? Do you think that there is hope? Do you see energy there? And how is it working with that specific generation and that group of young entrepreneurs?
I am optimistic. I think they're tech savvy. They're technological natives, right? They know how to use technology. They're globally minded. They're citizens of the world. I think thanks to the internet or even some content that they're digesting all the time. Just maybe sometimes this has bad effects on them, but it makes them feel like they're part of the world, and what is really important for them, I think, is impact. When 10 years ago everything was, or 15 years ago everything was starting, it was like a lifestyle hype, right? Sometimes startups wanted to be called startups for the sake of of this fun of being part of something cool or something Western. And I believe today, when they really build something, they are impact driven. They know why. They know what is supposed to be the effect of their work. But the other aspect of what you ask is the management of those people, and it's again. Like in every generation, I think the history repeats itself. Older generations always complain about certain aspects of the younger generation. So, in my opinion, this is just another change of the shift, right? This is what's going on, and I really believe in them. They really know what they want to do in the future.
Thank you, Maria. I think the motto is less hype, more action, and faith in our younger generation. Maria Belka, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure talking to you today.
Thank you very much.